If you're not awake, you're about to be awake, because our next speaker is like a triple espresso with a Red Bull chaser. If you're not awake after Cliff Maloney, the person next to you ought to check your pulse. Cliff is the CEO of Citizens Alliance and known the last several cycles as the founder of PA Ballot Chase, because he decided that conservatives ought to get in the fight and go out and collect mail-in ballots too, because it don't let the other side have all the fun. He and his team have helped in races in Pennsylvania and across the nation, and together have knocked on 9 million doors. And boy, is he tired. And boy, is he tired. Okay, all right, wasn't that funny? Yeah, see, there you go. Johnny Carson days. So he has done this and along the way made an impact in our state. After all, he's a Delco guy. But he's made an impact around the nation. And he's part of a generation of leaders who have been rebuilding and strengthening the conservative movement. And as we know, one of his closest friends and allies in arms was the late Charlie Kirk. Cliff had to guest host the next day. And he still continues to do that once a week. So we get to share our guy from Delco with the whole nation. And here he is to tell us a little bit about that relationship, the conservative movement, and why we have to learn better than the other side how to win, is our friend on the front line of battles, Mr. Cliff Maloney.
How's Camp Hill? I'm going to sit down for this one. Guy really built me up. What do you say, Red Bull and espresso? That's a pretty tough shoes to fill. Hey, my speech this year is going to be a little different. Usually I come out here, get all rah-rah, talk about chasing ballots and what we do with the PA Chase program. But I want to share some Charlie stories. I think I owe it to some folks, and I want to kind of share some of the behind the scenes, because a lot of people don't know the story of what happened when it comes to the PA Chase program. And for a while, I was kind of hesitant. But after Charlie was murdered, I'm like, we got to go out and talk about how much of an impact he had, not just on me, but on the Pennsylvania program itself. So let me take you guys back. This is December of 2023. I get a call from Charlie, and he had just been at Mar-a-Lago with his political team. And they had proposed to Trump's political team, this is Turning Point, their plan for 2024. And for anyone that followed along, yes, Turning Point, do we have Noah? Is the group in the room? They're out there tabling. Yeah, big round of applause for Turning Point in general. So Turning Point is in all 50 states. Oh, they're in the back. I see some folks. Great. Good to see you, Mallory. They're in all 50 states. So when I say they were just in Arizona and Wisconsin, understand what I mean by that. In the swing states where they elongated the actual process for voting. So instead of one day of voting, you had these seasons of voting. Turning Point had decided that Arizona and Wisconsin were going to be the two states where they would hire hundreds of activists to go out and either chase or harvest ballots where it's legal. So Charlie and Tyler and their team present this to Trump and his team. And I'm going to do the impersonation. It's getting a little better. I get some feedback for this. But Trump apparently said to them, Charlie, that's great, but don't forget about Pennsylvania. You got to do Pennsylvania. And that was a problem, because Turning Point had already announced that they were doing Arizona and Wisconsin. And for anyone that runs organizations, businesses, the worst thing you can do is go to your investors, go to your activists with the plan, and then have to retract and say, hey, we're actually changing the plan, even though we've already asked you to fund it. So then Charlie called me and said, listen, you've got Citizens Alliance in Pennsylvania. You guys knock a boatload of doors. We need to figure out a way to get you to do this. For years, I would come to PLC and tell you guys that at CAP, at Citizens Alliance of PA, we don't do the big federal races. Because if I can spend $3, $4, $5 million on state house races or state Senate races, we can win a bunch of those seats and actually impact policy to make Pennsylvania more conservative. If you spend that in a race like Scott Perry's, which we need to spend every dollar we have on Scott Perry, protect him at all costs, but in those races, they're spending tens of millions of dollars. So your impact might just be a point, which we're going to need it this year. But I always said we don't do federal races, we do state races. But the number that got me to do it was when Charlie pointed out that in 2020, Biden won Pennsylvania allegedly by 80,000 votes. 141,000 Republicans here in Pennsylvania requested a mail-in ballot and never voted. That was the delta. Those were the numbers that said we could actually be the difference in a statewide race. And what really sealed the deal is when it came out that whoever won Pennsylvania in 2024 had a 96.1% chance of winning the White House. So we agreed to do it. I said, Charlie, I need three things. I need your endorsement, because people are going to ask me, oh, this is great, you're doing a ground game, or you're working with Charlie Kirk. I said, two, I'm going to need Trump's sign off on this to make sure the campaign approves of what we're doing. We need that endorsement. And number three, I need your help to raise $3 million, to hire 120 people, to put up 10 Airbnbs, and to knock 500,000 doors, which is what we were tasked to do. He said, yes, here's my endorsement. Yes, we got the Trump campaign to sign on. And good luck, I got my own money to raise for Turning Point, which is fine. You guys have a $150 million budget, very different from what we were doing here. That was a big moment for me. That was a big moment for Citizens Alliance. We would go on to launch the program. We said when we launched something you're not supposed to say, which is we said we want to go from the 20% of the mail-in result that Trump had against Biden to 33% in 2024. We said if we could hit 33%, that Trump could not lose Pennsylvania and therefore would win the White House, with PA being the red wall. So every week I'd go on Charlie's show, I'd give updates about Pennsylvania. The morning of the election, I get a phone call from him. I had done Steve Bannon's show in the morning. Charlie calls me after the show and says, hey, great segment. I need you to come on our live stream tonight. Now, when Charlie asked you to go on the live stream, the answer is yes. But I said, well, why do you want me to go on? He said, well, if Florida comes in, if Georgia come in, if North Carolina come in, and you didn't screw up with the Pennsylvania chase, you're going to be able to do the analysis and you're going to be able to call the election. And he was right. A lot of you have seen the clip. I was right here across the street, our Camp Hill headquarters. The rest of the team on Charlie's show was in Arizona, but they had me do it remotely here. We were with the squad. But in that moment, for about 2 hours before we called it, we're all on group text, right? This is a little behind the scenes. So there's 5 of us doing the show, 4 of them in Arizona, me here. We're all on a group text. We've got the producers on there as well. And I'm begging them to call Pennsylvania because we're looking at the results and we're seeing Allegheny County. The second that came in, we already have all the data from knocking 510,000 doors. We know what the results are, and we know that there aren't enough votes left in Philadelphia. Now, they were doing everything they could to find those votes to try to take out Dave McCormick, a true patriot. So obviously we were all monitoring it, but I'm like, Charlie, let's call it for Trump. This is it. But he had PTSD from 2020, when a lot of these states were called, and then they would uncall them, and then we were all sitting there, and then it's 4 a.m, and who knows what's going on. And then finally, Fox News called it, and I saw it from across, the team's like screaming. So Charlie's talking, and I cut him off. And I say, Fox News declares that Donald Trump is now the president of the United States. And I had no idea at that moment that that would become a life-changing moment for me, because what happened was Charlie and the team clipped that moment and put it out there. And a lot of you have seen it. You don't know that it's me talking, but it's my voice. But it's when Charlie starts to tear up because he doesn't really have words to say. And Erica comes in and hugs him. And the whole team's kind of having a moment. Well, I'm the remote guy. So you can't have one thing when it comes to television. That's silence. Somebody's got to be yapping the whole time. It's the golden rule. And so they're all there, and it's emotional because Charlie's not speaking. Erica's hugging him. And so I just, stepped up and said, I want you to remember this moment. Remember where you were when the establishment and the Uniparty thought they were going to destroy this country. And I just congratulated Charlie. I said, Charlie, you were the one that told me to focus on PA, to knock the 500,000 doors. We went out, we knocked 510,000 doors. Trump got 34.5% of the mail-in vote, and we've got our country back. I'm not going to lie to you guys. People ask me, how's everybody doing post-Charlie? It's difficult, but the one thing I'm committed to is to do the work. That was one of my favorite quotes from him. Knock that extra door, do the work. And so I think that's the big question everybody has to ask is how do we go out there? And by the way, look, you're not going to replace a Charlie Kirk. Okay, Charlie Kirk ran a $100+ million organization. He managed a staff of hundreds of W-2 employees. He was an advisor to the President of the United States. He had a show 5 days a week. You know how hard it is to have a daily show and to keep up? He's got senators, congressmen calling him for advice. He's a media pundit. He's somebody responding outside of his show to news, putting out press releases. And he was the best in the world at all of them. So yes, we're going to have to replace different pieces of that with talent, with individuals. Turning Point is thriving right now. I was just with them a couple weeks ago, opened up an office in Las Vegas, and they're doing great, as good as you could be under the current situation. But that do the work mantra is something I really want to put out there because 2026 has the potential to be ugly. And everyone's talking about it. Gas prices are going up. We've got issues in Iran. We've got all these things happening. I'm not here to talk policy. That's all everybody else. You guys can ask Senator McCormick about policies. I'm here to talk about ground game and making sure that we compete with the Democrats and try to beat them at their own game. So what are we doing in 2026 at Citizens Alliance? Where are we targeting? What's the plan? The PA chase will continue. We have pledged, and I'll announce it here today, that in 2026, this year, we will knock 750,000 doors chasing ballots right here. Now, in 2024, we did have some big wins. Okay, obviously, we had Bresnahan, we had McKenzie, we had Scott Perry. 3 huge congressional wins. But let's not forget that half of the cabinet members that we have right now would not be serving the president if we did not beat Casey with the Patriot Dave McCormick. Remember this, 7 million votes. And Dave worked his rear end off to go out and win by what, 10, 15,000 out of 7 million votes. So once again, just looking back at 2024, yes, we won for Trump. Yes, Stacey won, Tim won, Dave Sunday won. Dave McCormick winning there's so much impact there, but it's because so many people went out, and as a team, nobody gets the credit, as a team, we all did the work. I'm telling you right now that 2026 is going to be extremely difficult. It's not a kumbaya moment. I don't want us to all think, oh, it's going to be fine. They're coming at us with everything they have. They have hundreds of people on the ground chasing requests right now on the left. When I say that, that's not hyperbole. You guys see these No Kings protests? Those folks don't just pop up. They're paid. This is Arabella. This is Tides Foundation. This is Soros funding. We are matching what they're doing, but we don't have that type of USAID money. We have patriots that want to save the republic. So in 2026, we're knocking 750,000 doors. We're targeting those 3 congressionals. Once again, 7, 8, and 10. We've got McKenzie, we've got Bresnahan, we've got Perry. We've been there since January. We've changed our strategy. We're now doing what they do, which is we never go home. This is not just August through Election Day anymore. This is January 1, when the mail-in requests reset, we are there and we are on the ground. Obviously, we're fighting for Stacey Garrity. Every door that we knock on will benefit Stacey Garrity. That's 750,000 doors trying to get those Republicans to get their ballot back. Below that, we've got obviously the state Senate. We must have the state Senate to push back against Shapiro. We must have the state Senate. and then we will target about 10 state house seats to try to make a difference. The PA Chase program, you guys can find out more. It's doorswinwars.com, doorswinwars.com. You can follow me on X at Maloney. I love being here as a Delco guy. Pennsylvania is what delivered us the White House. Let's do the work in 2026. Thank you, everybody.